Hey there guys, welcome back to Community Starcraft 2. I'm here for another game, and today's game is going to be mOOnGLaDe, who is the purple Zerg spawning down here on the bottom side of Metalopolis, which is now defunct on the ladder. Yes, I know, very strange to see that. And I love this color on Zerg. This purple Zerg looks really, really nice. But then again, I think I say that about every color that's not red or blue. He's going to be fighting nGenLight, who I've never heard of this player before, nor this clan tag, if that's actually what it is. And I think this is played on the European servers during some like ESL event or something like that. And yeah, I don't know a whole lot of players out of Europe, at least these more obscure players, that have these tags that I've never seen before. So this should prove to be an interesting game at least. And we see nGenLight actually going for a Forge Fast Expand in all likelihood, as he is going to be starting to build his buildings around here on this pylon to start walling to where his Nexus is going to start. mOOnGLaDe does see where the Protoss player spawns and doesn't really care that he's giving away his own position, as the probe is now inside the base. And look at this, here's a trick that we don't see very often, at least in the games that I've casted so far. This probe is going to be in here denying mining off of one of the mineral patches for as long as possible. And what you can do if you actually have the APM to support that is you'll start to mine and then stop, and start to mine and then stop. And what that'll make the drone AI do is actually find another field that's not occupied. So if you can deny 1/8 of their mineral income by denying mining from this field, it can be pretty valuable, but it takes some crazy APM to pull off. Geez, let me pull up the production tab and see what's going on. There is a spawning pool starting at a normal time for mOOnGLaDe, and nGenLight is indeed going for that Forge Fast Expand. He's not throwing down a second pylon here, and he's stockpiling a lot of minerals, so he is going to be throwing down a Nexus as his next building, and then probably another pylon as soon as he gets resources. And typically with a wall like this, your second pylon is usually going to go down behind your mineral line, so that you can put another cannon right here to prevent any harassment on your probes. But we'll see what he decides to do. And yes, here comes the pylon down behind his geysers instead, which is a good place for it. Back in mOOnGLaDe's base, I know I haven't casted mOOnGLaDe before. He is an Australian pro gamer, one of the very few that hail from Australia. And he plays on the Korean servers, I'm pretty sure, but it's such bad ping that I'm sure when he gets to another country and is able to play on close ping, it's such a privilege for him. So I expect his play to be very good in this game, especially against a player that isn't really well known in nGenLight. But we'll see what unfolds in this game, of course. And this is interesting. mOOnGLaDe is not expanding here. He was showing a Speedling expand, but he's throwing down a Baneling's Nest instead, so we may see a really fast Baneling bust, which I love plays like this against Forge Fast Expanding Protosses, especially in awkward situations like this where they can't fully wall. They just have to kind of pseudo wall and funnel rather than actually wall. So we'll see how these Banelings come into play out of mOOnGLaDe, which will no doubt be morphing as soon as he has an opportunity to. This is essentially all in. He's relying on this push to do a ton of damage. This probe is actually going to mineral walk, and it might actually see the Baneling's Nest. Oh my god, it does see the Baneling's Nest. So nGenLight gets a phenomenal scout off. I cannot believe his timing on that scout. That was beautiful. So he gets in there, he sees the Baneling's Nest. He's going to be in all-out panic mode. Look at him walling off his mineral lines here. So he's going to make these Banelings waste a lot of themselves on just killing this pylon. He's going to do some canceling on his gateway so that he can start a Cybernetics core instead, so that he can continue to tech at the same rate. So this is great play out of nGenLight. That was such a phenomenal read with that probe. Here come the Banelings, and the Banelings are going to have to kill themselves on a building. They're going to go for the Forge. They don't actually kill it, so he's going to have to use a lot of Zerglings in order to get it down. But the Zerglings are now in the base, so mOOnGLaDe could still do a ton of damage to this worker line. The probes really need to fall back and try to fight around this cannon as much as they can, but they're not. They're just eating damage from these Zerglings. So nGenLight's fabulous reactions so far are kind of dwindling a little bit. mOOnGLaDe can now work on this Nexus a little bit, and the wall is still wide open, so reinforcing Zerglings can come in. nGenLight really needs to find some minerals and throw down another Forge or a second gateway right there to wall that off to prevent any streaming reinforcements here from mOOnGLaDe. But the interesting thing is that mOOnGLaDe's hatchery is just now starting, so that if nGenLight is still able to hold this base, it's still essentially one base to one base until nGenLight can get stabilized. So this is a strange opening to the game, but nGenLight is still not out of it. Here comes mOOnGLaDe scouting up here. He's going to see 3 cannons. These Zerglings are basically trapped, but they did kill the Nexus there in the main. So nGenLight's going to have to put out at least probably like 3 Zealots, I'd say, with some good micro to take down these Speedlings. And even that might be stretching it a little bit. So nGenLight is going to be contained in his base from both angles for quite a while. This will allow mOOnGLaDe to drone really hard, as we can see a lot of drones coming up on the production tab. He still has quite a bit of Zerglings out here, and if he's able to use more Banelings or get them in somehow and get on this worker line, that'll be game over, because considering these probes have nowhere to run, they're officially walled in. As you can see, no escapes right here, no escapes in the back, so these probes are stuck. If even a few Banelings manage to get in there somehow and not die by all these cannons, that would officially be game over, but all these cannons are really the saving grace for nGenLight right now. An awkward situation at the time. Warp gate is just finishing at 822. 2 gates are up instead of, the 4 that would typically need to be off of 1 base. As you can see, the other 2 are morphing in the back. Another Cybernetics core indicating he's going to knock his front door's Cybernetics core down, so he's ready to start breaking out of his base and take his main back, I would assume. Still Zerglings in there, but he can warp in some reinforcements and go in there with some Zealots and kill those Zerglings once and for all. So he's going to come out here just a little bit, posture, see if there's anything out there. I'm not sure if he knows that this army is still standing out here for a potential run-by. And he does re-wall with a pylon, which, that's kind of odd, to kill your Cybernetics core and then just re-wall anyway. The Zealots are going to just go right past all the mOOnGLaDe stuff. mOOnGLaDe is going to see this coming. There are some more Banelings morphing here in mOOnGLaDe's base, so these Banelings will waste these Zealots if it comes down to that. There's also a probe hold, which I'm not sure is actually intentional, but he does have the probe selected, so it could be just for the proxy pylon if he wants to go for a 4-gate counter, or it could be, I was just going to say, to hold that watchtower, but he's not going to. The probe is now separating itself. It is going to drop a proxy pylon. mOOnGLaDe is actually supply blocked from losing an Overlord, so he really needs to get his Overlords out so he can reinforce this fight. Spine Crawlers, Banelings, and Speed Zerglings here, though. I really think this should shut this attack down pretty fast. Here's 18 more Zerglings coming out, maxing mOOnGLaDe out once again, or at least capping him. So here comes the Warp-ins. This is kind of worrisome for nGenLight. He really needs some sentries in this mix, but he really can't afford the gas right now. Here come the Banelings, and they're going to detonate all over these Zealots. You can see them just instantly disappear. There's actually not the greatest of Baneling detonations, but still, if you remove a few Zealots from the battle that fast and are able to surround the rest of the army, yeah, that's going to really put you ahead. So mOOnGLaDe is really tearing nGenLight apart. 4 more Zealots are rallying here, but mOOnGLaDe's reinforcement potential and full, well, at least decent mining off of his natural is going to hold this off for quite a while. Zealots are really bad against Spine Crawlers, so he really shouldn't do very much damage, if any at all. He'll probably just take inefficient losses from this point. You can see more Zealots are warping in, but they're barely going to get here in time as the other Zealots fall. More Zerglings are rallying out here, and the surrounds are just going to be too great for mOOnGLaDe. mOOnGLaDe's still losing a lot of units, but the fact of the matter is that he's keeping nGenLight's army whittled down to almost nothing, and these Spine Crawlers will still push away these Zealots easily. So here comes some sentries finally that he's needed for quite a while, and a couple of Stalkers off of his next warp-in. He's not interested in taking his expansion, or rather his main, back at all, so he's basically all in right now too. So weird tempo so far. You can see mOOnGLaDe starting to spread his creep out so he can get better engagement angles on this army and better surrounds at least. mOOnGLaDe's sitting on a really odd number of gas. 1 gas right now, which you don't see that every day. But nGenLight's going to try to press up here again. He needs to be really careful right now, but he's so far all in that I feel like he has to commit to this attack, even though that's really bad for him. His force fielding is going to have to be basically better than perfect, in the sense that I don't think this game is winnable for him right now. mOOnGLaDe just sending out a scouting Zergling to see what kind of forces nGenLight has on the field. nGenLight's actually ahead in supply right now, but that doesn't really matter considering these Spine Crawlers are still standing, and if he put out an extra queen, which he actually has not, he could just have that extra queen saved up there just for transfuses on these Spine Crawlers. Here's a Zealot walking around, trying to scout out, and some interesting positioning on these Zealots here. That's again something interesting, and he's just going to lose them all because they're going to get surrounded so easily, so I don't know what the point of that was. But he does lose all those Zealots for nothing. mOOnGLaDe is sensing the blood in the water. He's going to go right after it, and some random force fields here that are kind of putting a wall up against these stalkers, but they're not going to do enough to keep him alive for very much longer. mOOnGLaDe is still just throwing Zerglings at this. I'd really like to see him mining gas and making a few drones here and there. Considering he just lost his whole force, mOOnGLaDe may have just given this game away. So up comes nGenLight's next advancement. Here come the Spine Crawlers really doing a ton of damage to this army. You can see Spine Crawlers in accordance with Zerglings really clean that up fast. So nGenLight may have just gotten a little bit overzealous, and he's getting his army cleaned up once again. So this is a really, really awkward game. I feel like nGenLight had a golden opportunity there, but he just didn't get good enough force fields to prevent these Zerglings from surrounding his army again. If you can get just fighting the Spine Crawlers and isolate these Zerglings somehow, like with some force fields that would trap him up against this little corner right here, he could have overcome that. Now mOOnGLaDe is finally starting to drone so that he can afford to mine gas, as we can see him doing now in his vein. Here come another round of Zerglings. They're going to take these sentries out before they really drop many force fields. Nice pullback there from mOOnGLaDe. If he had stuck in that, he would have really lost a lot of Zerglings unnecessarily. There's also an Evo chamber coming up, which usually means it's going to be Zergling armor, if anything, I would figure. But we will see what he decides to do with that, if anything, as it sits there idle right now. He does not have the gas to start any of his upgrades right now. But the Queen is going to get trapped, and the Queen is going to die. Here are these Spine Crawlers taking a lot of damage from these Zealots. The Zerglings come in to surround, and the Spine Crawlers, if they're able to attack like this without getting attacked, that's really ideal. mOOnGLaDe has to pull drones now, so mOOnGLaDe is really just in such a goofy situation right now. His Spine Crawlers all went down. I'm kind of surprised he didn't make more, quite honestly. Here comes another Queen to puke on that hatchery, and that Queen actually didn't die, so she's really grateful to still be alive right now. Here comes some Banelings finally morphing, so if he gets good Baneling detonations, that should effectively end the game, but I feel like I've said that 10 times by now. Here come these forces pulling up here before the Banelings are actually ready. Some Zealots are being separated, as we can see him trying to absorb damage on those Banelings individually, and those Banelings actually blow up a bunch of Zealots. But I actually think mOOnGLaDe might lose this. This is so close. nGenLight is still pressing up here as hard as he can. mOOnGLaDe is trying to fend it off, killing whatever else he can. It's now 3 Zerglings and reinforcements from nGenLight trying to hold this off.